It is difficult to describe my feelings when I heard of the recent death of FIDE master Neil Carr, who passed away in Jersey on the 25th of May 2015 from a heart attack, aged only 47. And that's because Neil and I were buddies. Although he was 11 years younger than me, we grew up together in the same area of London, he in Barking, me in East Ham, and we played for the same chess clubs. First East Ham, then Ilford, and finally London Central YMCA. Neil could easily have been described as a chess prodigy, but somehow I associate the word prodigy with eccentricity, and that's something you could never describe Neil as. He was a perfectly likeable, cheerful, generous, kind human being who happened to be exceptionally gifted at chess. Although only a FIDE master, Neil could easily have gone on to become international and maybe a grandmaster if he had bothered to continue playing chess. But as most of the English chess community knows, he gave up more or less playing chess in 1989 to develop a career for his studies and eventually to have a family. Well, this is a very tough thing to have to take, his passing. You know, it leaves you almost stunned that somebody so young could pass away. I can only leave my condolences and sympathies to his family. I mean, quite what they must be feeling at this moment, I just don't know. I know something about this though, because my own father passed away when he was 48. It leaves you with a mixture of disbelief and acceptance within you. You know, it leaves you completely stunned. It's a combination of the grief and the shock. So I do hope they eventually get through this. And just remember that Neil was a very positive person, and he left a really positive imprint on all who knew him. So to commemorate Neil's life, we now come to the BCM Game of the Month for June 2015. And I'd like to take you all the way back to the British Championship in Southampton in 1986, when Neil was playing extremely well. And funnily enough, I've chosen a game he actually played against me. We didn't play that often, but this game was a bit of a learning experience for me, as I was absolutely slaughtered. Neil, his style was predominantly tactical, I would say. He was very energetic. His style was aggressive, and to a degree it was original. And that is why Neil, with black, quite often favoured the modern defence, and this is what he played against me in this game. I took the centre with d4, black played bishop g7, and now the knight came up to f3. I was content with a simple enough system, and then the bishop to g5, which is kind of what I was playing at that time. This is not a bad idea, although it's not often played, possibly because the bishop is exposed on g5 and it's thought that black can maybe give it a jab with h6. Anyway, Neil decided not to do this and stick with the straightforward move castles, when I kind of like white's position. We just play back one move. Bishop e3 is all the rage these days, and white's simple idea is to go queen d2 and then bishop h6. When you take away the fianchetto bishop from people who like these type of systems, the idea is that somehow they feel weaker in themselves. So I was quite happy in the game that I was allowed to play queen to d2 to create this battery and to set up the idea of bishop h6. And Neil now played c6. Well, white could of course play bishop h6 straight away. Looking at it now, at a distance of 29 years, I wonder why I didn't do that. Although it must be said that black has a perfectly reasonable position after bishop g4. This is one drawback from white's perspective. He can't stop this bishop coming out to g4. And then if white tries some fancy tricks, aiming to preserve his knight after, let's say, h6, h3, then black can play a funny move here, bishop h5. And after g4, he takes the knight. Well, black's going to get quite a strong position for his knight on h5. It's difficult for white to break through. For instance, if white castles, leaving the bishop on h5, black can simply play b5. Eventually white's got to take that knight, and now black recaptures, with what I think is quite a reasonable position. So going back, I decided on straightforward play, bishop to d3, and Neil now played his queen to c7, preparing after castles to play e5. So black has chosen a straightforward way. You'd think that white enjoyed some sort of small advantage here, but as we'll see, it's really not that easy for white to take his attack further. Whereas for black, well, black can get his pawns moving on the queen side. So I played h3. I think, to stop bishop g4. It was as simple as that. I mean, once again, I think if bishop h6, black can play b5, white chops on g7. White's still got the spectre of bishop g4 haunting him, for instance. So if knight e2, black can play bishop g4, h3 takes, knight bd7. Again, we reach a very satisfactory position for black. White's bishop on d3 is unimpressive. So as I say, Neil's style was energetic, and he plays rook e8, just making all preparations for the queenside pawn storm. And I moved in with bishop h6. Now this move sets a little trap, but Neil, being a very strong tactician, was not going to fall for this trap. And the trap is that if black preserves the bishop with bishop h8, white takes on e5 and plays a slightly surprising move here, bishop c4. Well, I suppose it's not that surprising. Aiming at f7. And I think now black is in trouble. For instance, if he plays b5 and b4, white has the crushing move knight to g5. Pawn takes knight, and now the decoy, queen to d6. Yes, I'm afraid black is probably losing this position, because black's queen is in real trouble. She can't take on d6, because bishop takes f7 is a very nice checkmate, and it's hard to see how black's going to protect the position. So there was no way that Neil was going to fall for that. Going back to the game, he played b5. I took on g7, I took on e5, and played knight to e2, hoping to redirect the knight towards the king side to continue the white attack. But black, after a6 and then c5, now started to show an attack of his own. And it's around here that I started to feel very uncomfortable, because I was well aware of Neil's attacking capabilities. Just going back, bishop e6 is also perfectly reasonable. But it's very tempting to start the pawn charge towards the white king, isn't it? King b1, knight bd7. There's absolutely nothing wrong with this position from black's perspective. But black preferred the pawn charge. White played knight to g3. And now, here's the difference. Black gets to put his knight on c6. A very nice square with a whole range of possibilities for the knight. White plays c3. A rather hesitant looking move, but I guess I just didn't see any future in pushing the pawns. Black's knight drops back to g8, and after bishop g4, you can see it's virtually impossible to break through. Black is getting on top. This pesky move, bishop g4, rears its ugly head again, and for instance, black can plonk his knight in on d4, again with a very respectable position. So going back to the game, Neil played bishop e6, very natural, and I put my queen in on g5. So hard to remember games from this long ago, but I think my original intention here was to go knight f5 check, which of course is great if black takes the knight with a pawn, but he probably takes with a bishop. G takes f5, and now move like rook e d8. And it just seems to me that bishop on d3 is very poor, and black has the initiative here for sure. And I just didn't like this. I think didn't like this type of thing. After queen e3, c4, black is well on top in my view. So queen to g5, trying to do the job with pieces. Neil keeps very calm. He's in his element. It's a tactical situation. He's counter-attacking in a vigorous way. That was a hallmark of his style. And he moves forward without loss of time. C4 and B4. Now white goes into reverse gear. And black is able to improve his position once again. This is a clear sign, this type of move, that white has gone wrong somewhere. To this day, you know, I look at this game in puzzlement. You know, where did I go wrong? I was trying to start the attack, but, well, no attack is in sight. Meanwhile, black ploughs on with his queenside initiative, and I think white is in serious trouble already. So I tried to push forward. Black takes, of course. White takes with the queen. Taking with the knight. Doesn't really achieve very much as far as I can see. And after queen takes g5, black's queen came out to a5. So now Neil is pounding down on the white king, and I think I just felt extremely uncomfortable here. Perhaps the best defensive move is queen e3. At least that's what today's computers suggest. But I play rook d2. And now I think black misses a very nice win. I mean, the move he plays is very strong. Rook e d8. That's extremely strong, trying to exchange off a key defender of white's king. But I think b takes c3 is the best way here, with the idea of rook takes b2. This is a very crushing sacrifice indeed. And the point is that when white takes the black rook, rook b8 check is played, in comes the black queen, and now queen a3 check is just winning, I think. Never mind, rook e d8 is good enough. I took on d8, rook takes d8, and now knight to h4. Again, I think white is missing whatever chance he has in this position. The best opportunity to survive is to take on b4 and then to go queen e3. And maybe, just maybe, white can hang on. Knight h4, ridiculously ambitious. The check on f5 doesn't achieve very much. And now an extremely good move, rook to d3. And this more or less finishes white off. A very nice idea. Just threatening to take on c3 twice and completely demolish the white king. I took the rook. Was there anything better? Well, white can try a tricky move like knight f4. But I think even after that, black can take on c3. And after king g8, knight takes e6 check, he can play king g8. Turns out that black's attack is stronger than white's. If bishop takes d3, we go queen takes a2. And if knight takes g6, we have c takes b2 check, and then queen b3 check. All these lines were found with the help of a computer, but I don't think they're too difficult to find over the board. The attack has an element of momentum to it all the way through, and of course you can see this is a winning position for black. So going back, I took on d3, Neil recaptured, the knight came to g3, b takes c3, those pawns are absolutely devastating, knight gf5 check, king g8, and I decided to resign. Well, that was, I hesitate to say one of Neil's best games, but it was certainly very reflective of his style. It had that energy, it had that opportunism, it had the aggression, it had a certain originality to it. All hallmarks of his play at its best. So, again, I can only stress what a sad time this is. I can only offer, and I'm sure I speak on behalf of the entire English chess community, my condolences and sympathies to Neil's relatives at this difficult time. May he rest in peace.